You know, when you picture a pilot getting ready for a flight, you probably imagine them doing that walk around, right? Checking the engines, the wings, all that stuff. But what if I told you that one of the absolute most critical pre-flight checks has nothing to do with the plane at all? Nope. It has everything to do with the pilot.
It's this fundamental idea in aviation. Every single part, every system, every single person has to be working at 100%. Because when you're thousands of feet up in the air, there is just no room for a weak link.
So that really makes you wonder, right? What is the most important component on a plane? Is it the engines, the navigation gear, the actual frame of the aircraft? Well, it's kind of a trick question, but the answer really gets to the very heart of flight safety.
That's right, the pilot. When you look at it, a huge number of aviation accidents are caused by human error, so the person in the cockpit is the single most critical and definitely the most variable part of the whole operation. They're like this invisible machine that has to be in perfect working order. Okay, so if the pilot is a machine that needs checking, how do they do it? It's not like you can just kick the tires and check the oil. Well, it turns out aviation has this really elegant and powerful solution for that very problem, a personal pre-flight checklist.
It's called the IMSAFE checklist, and really, it's just a simple acronym that's also a powerful self-analysis tool. It lets pilots systematically check in on their own physical and mental readiness before they even think about touching the controls.
And here it is, broken down for you. IMSFE stands for illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion. This is basically our roadmap for the rest of this explainer, for understanding how a pilot makes sure they are truly 100% fit to fly.
All right, let's dive in and break down those first three letters. These really get to the core of a pilot's immediate physical and psychological state. First up, I is for illness. Now, this might seem super obvious, right? I mean, nobody wants to fly with a pilot who's sick. But in the world of aviation, the standards for what actually counts as sick are way, way higher.
And this is where it gets really serious. We're not just talking about having the flu. Even something like a mild cold, a little sinus pressure, can become excruciating with air pressure changes and could actually cause severe vertigo. A simple cough might make it impossible to communicate clearly with air traffic control. The takeaway here is crucial. If a pilot is not feeling 100%, the flight is off, period.
Okay, next up in the checklist is M for medication. And this isn't just about heavy-duty prescription drugs. This covers everything, even simple over-the-counter stuff.
The big danger here is all about side effects. I mean, even a simple antihistamine or a headache pill could cause drowsiness, and that is an absolute no-go for a pilot. That's why the rule is crystal clear. Pilots have to consult an aviation medical examiner, an AME, about the effects of any medication they take. No exceptions. And then there's S for stress. This moves us away from the purely physical stuff and into the psychological factors that are every bit as critical for a safe flight. You know, whether it's stress from personal issues happening on the ground or the pressures of a difficult flight, it's a major threat. It directly messes with a pilot's ability to make good decisions and react quickly when something unexpected happens. So pilots have this professional responsibility to recognize their stress levels and manage them before they even step into the cockpit. All right, let's get to the final three elements of the checklist. These cover some of the most well-known and, honestly, some of the most sneaky and dangerous risks in aviation. A is for alcohol. And look, the rule here is just absolute. You should never, ever, ever fly while under the influence of alcohol. It's that simple. So the general rule of thumb in the industry is a minimum of 8 hours from bottle to throttle, but that's just the bare minimum. A lot of airlines have even stricter policies. We're talking 12 or even 14 hours between a pilot's last drink and their next flight. And this is the number that really matters. The federal aviation regulations are very clear. A pilot is not allowed to fly with a blood alcohol concentration or BAC of 0.04% or higher. Now, to put that into perspective for you, the legal limit for driving a car in most places is 0.08%. The standard for a pilot is literally twice as strict. That just goes to show you how incredibly seriously the risk of alcohol is taken in aviation. Now we come to F for fatigue, and this one is often called the silent killer in aviation, and for a very, very good reason. Fatigue has been a huge factor in so many accidents. It messes with everything: your thinking, your concentration, even your basic hand-eye coordination. In fact, some studies have shown that being severely fatigued can be even more dangerous than being under the influence of alcohol. High-quality rest before a flight isn't a perk, it's a non-negotiable safety requirement.
And that brings us to the final letter in our checklist, E for emotion.
Being emotionally distressed can be just as bad as any physical sickness. A pilot has to be on an even keel to fly safely. But E is also kind of the catch-all for everything else. Things like outside distractions or even just remembering to eat properly. Skipping a meal can mess with your focus and decision-making just as much as a big emotional event can.
So there you have it. Illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and emotion. Together, those 6 letters form the IMSAFE checklist. It's that final personal go or no-go decision. It's a pilot's promise to themselves, to their passengers, and to the safety of the entire flight. And think about this. A pilot can run through this whole check-in about a minute, 60 seconds. But when you consider everything it stands for, self-awareness, responsibility, and putting safety above all else, you really have to ask, could this be the single most important minute of the entire flight?